All right, Miss Stacy. So just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Stacy, and I'm an assistant professor at a university in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Oh, I know you have those little fancy letters, the PhD behind your name.
I do, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. What did you want to achieve when you joined this program? What were you hoping to achieve?
So I was looking really to have a little bit of peace in my life, internal peace, external peace, and not really quite sure where to get that. And so when I saw your call, I looked at that and I thought this might be the place for me.
I don't know if anybody would ever say that Kim Strobel brought more peace to their life. I love that. My husband would be like, "What did she just say?" But it is about clarity, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, can you talk a little bit about some areas in your life that you felt maybe unfulfilled or the problems you were facing?
Sure. I think, we get, especially as women, we get into this every day where you feel like you're on that hamster wheel and it's just going around and around and around and you just cannot get off of that. And I think that's where I was when I talked to you at first over the summer. And I just didn't know how to get off of that wheel. And I didn't know how to get my family to help me get off of that wheel. I didn't know that was even an option, that I could ask for help. And I think that was one of the biggest gains from this program.
It seems like such a simple concept, right? But
Yeah.
why do you think we have issues around that?
I think as women, we really feel like we need to do it all. I need to go to work and I need to look like I have it all put together. I know my student evaluations, if you look at the research behind those, it shows that women in academia are actually rated on a different scale in students' minds. So we have to look the part, we have to act the part, we can only be a certain temperament, where men get away with a lot more things. They can come in and look dressed down. But women, if we go in and we wear jeans, they evaluate us, oh, she's not dressed up, whereas men, that's more acceptable. Men can come in and they can be harsher on students, but when women do that, they're given a different title for that. So there's a lot of double standards, but yet then we're expected to come home and make dinner and do homework and take the kids everywhere and make the doctor's appointments. And so there's a lot of double standards and a lot of expectations that we may have seen modeled as we grew up. And so we are expecting ourselves to be able to fulfill all of these needs as well.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And it's like the stories we tell ourselves and the expectations that we have are just not, those are not truths. We think they're truths, but they're not. So I want you to talk a little bit about, and if I could get George to quit going back and forth, this would be helpful as well. Um, George, here, hold on. So let's talk about the impact. So what would you say the impact of being in this program, what has this done for you personally?
Personally, for me, it's really given me an opportunity to sit back and examine why I think about things the way that I do, because on a day-to-day basis, you just do. And again, you're on that hamster wheel and you're really just trying to get through every day and make that one day not a disaster was my goal. Like, I want to come home and make sure my kids are being successful in school, they have something to eat, they feel loved. Everybody's doing what they need to do. And in the end, I really forgot about me and what do I need in my life. And so I think one of the biggest gains from this program is really having the time to step back and take a look at, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I feel the way that I do? And then, what control do I have over those realistically? And how can I exert my control over those, to take back control of my life and do some things that I want to do and what's meaningful to me?
And so you have done a great job of that, because you really dug in and pushed yourself to get uncomfortable. And so just that in itself, what kinds of outcomes have changed as a result of that work?
Well, first, I would say, within the first couple of weeks, I would say that my outlook on life greatly improved. Not that I had a bad outlook on life, but I really could see my positivity increase, not only my positivity about myself and what I think about myself, but also with others, my patience, certainly, with my family, with my kids, even with the dog, has greatly increased because I think my positivity about myself has increased. So I think that was one of my early major wins, if you could say. Some of the other things, certainly, I've had this little burning desire that I want to do something else with my life. I really enjoy academia. I enjoy teaching. I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. But I also have felt that there was this other something that I might want to do. And so looking into starting my own business and making that launch and starting to see some fruit there has been really great for me.
Yeah, you really built, I mean, I want you to talk a little bit about that because I think one of the things that you've been able to do is kind of start taking action on this dream you have of this other business. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and how that came to fruition?
Sure. So I started into academia later in life. This is really my second life career. And before that, I worked in a different industry. And so transitioning from industry into academia takes a little bit of getting used to because, it's its own little world, its own time cycle. And there's a lot of shocks when you come from industry to academia where the time to make decisions is forever. The responsiveness to some things is not as quickly as you would like. And, there are some reasons for some of that. Some of it's still hard for me after 10 years of being in academia. It's still hard for me to get over how long it takes to do some things. And so along the way, I've had a lot of people ask me, oh, gee, I think I'd like to be a professor. How do you go about doing that? And I've had friends who I've coached along the way to go ahead and get jobs in different universities. And I've had an opportunity in the last couple of years to work with our national association to talk with some folks about just that topic. And people keep telling me, you're really good at this. You really should think about doing more with this. And it just got me thinking maybe I could actually make some money doing this. So not that I've made any money yet, but I'm on my way. I had another opportunity just last week to do another speaking engagement with our national association. And I've had a lot of people who reached out to me afterwards to say, gee, thanks, I really enjoyed your topic. I hope to keep in touch. And so I'm trying to put them into a Facebook group and keep in touch with them there. So I think this program has really helped me to say, okay, I can do this. I can do it while I'm still teaching because I've been able to organize my life in other areas. And I think this program has a lot to do with that. And I give it a lot of credit, and to you, Kim.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've just watched like your confidence grown. I feel like that you have a different energy about you or ambience, or I feel like you don't look like the same woman who came into the program. But is that me, or like I just feel a totally different energy around you, Stacy? I do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I was pretty well beaten down at the beginning, and not like beaten in the sense of like physical beaten, but just tired and overwhelmed. And, I didn't know which way to turn. And I just felt like I was in this helpless circle of just work and kids and work and kids and work and kids. And, now I have this greater sense of purpose, I guess you could say, where I have this business that I'm trying to launch, which gives me some interest and joy in the day. I mean, not that teaching doesn't do that. I enjoy that. And I keep up with research, and I'm keeping up with to prepare for classes, and I'm still working with students, and that's very good as well. But I think, that along with a lot of the lessons that you've given us about positivity and happiness, I think have really helped to change my whole outlook on life.
I think one of your biggest lessons personally was I think you learned to value yourself.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because I think I really saw myself as, I remember saying this, my friend and I were talking about this maybe 2 years ago, where we were both having these same feelings of overwhelm all the time. And, I remember her saying to me something like, well, our time has really passed. Like now it's not about us anymore. It's about our kids, and it's about getting our kids to what they need. And I think I really bought into that. And not to say I don't neglect my children. They certainly have more than they need. They get to do whatever pretty much they want to do. They're cared for, they're loved. But I also recognize that I need to take care of me, because if I want to be here for my kids in the long run, I've got to do things like exercise and eat better and make sure I'm maintaining my just personal self.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good lesson for me.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So what would you say, what are 3 parts of our system, the system that I use to kind of guide you along this path, that maybe have had the biggest impact for you?
So I think first would be the lessons and the research behind how we can understand how much we actually have control of in our lives. And for me, that was an eye-opening fact, that I have control over this much of my life, even though circumstances may dictate this, my heredity may dictate this, but I have control over a lot of it. And what my actions, my thoughts, and my beliefs can really change how my life is. And I think that was the biggest thing to begin with, that really captured me and said, wow, this is really going to be life-changing for me. And the second part is the activities that you have for us to do. So those activities, while time consuming and sometimes gut wrenching, because you're finding out things about yourself that you really have maybe never thought about, or maybe have suppressed in some way, about how they really affect how you think about things and what you believe in life. And so those 2 things, I think overall, were the big things. But then being able to have those one-on-one coaching calls with you, because those really helped to put everything together, where I could ask questions. And then we had that other one-on-one coaching call.
Yeah.
So the group calls, but also that one-on-one coaching call, because that was really helpful for me to say, okay, here's my specific thing that I want to work on, but I just don't know how to do that. And you were able to really help me fill in the gaps on that.
Yeah. It's really hard. Even when we ask women, like, where do you see yourself in a year? They don't even know how to see themselves in a year. Like you have to be coached on that, because it doesn't always come naturally to us to know that we are allowed to have these bigger, bolder dreams for who we are. So I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about results, because here's the deal. When people are considering a program, they want to know, I'm going to get the results. I would love to know what results you have achieved.
Well, again, I think really the biggest result is just a whole turnaround in the way I think about things. And that, as we know, impacts what you believe and impacts your actions, which impacts how your whole life is going to go. And so that for me has been a major change. It certainly has taken my family a little bit getting used to some of the changes, but now after a couple of months, most people in my household are doing okay with that. So I think that was really the biggest change. And then of course, this whole idea of I can start this new business, I can start this new venture, and people can say you're crazy, you don't have time to do what you need to do now. And I can say, that's okay. You know what? It's mine, and I can do it at my pace, and it will be what it is that I want it to be, when I want it to be. So I think those are the biggest changes immediately that I've seen. And I can say that I think that's really just the tip of the iceberg from this. I think there's a lot of residual, if we want to call it, positive fallout that will come from this as well.
Yeah, because I feel like the purpose is to really work on the inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's simple concepts, right? Like learning to love ourselves should not be so hard. Understanding that we have value and gifts and passion and purpose to bring into this world, and that we have the confidence to do so. These aren't hard things when you think about them in themselves, but for some reason, it is really hard for us as women to do that on our own.
Mhm.
I mean, I myself am in coaching programs. I will always be in some type of coaching program. Um, but what happens is it becomes like almost like a new foundation of a home that you're building, which is you. And then that, for me, I think that changes every outcome and area that you're navigating in your life. I do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so let's talk about this. I almost didn't join because
I almost didn't join because the money, to be honest with you, it was really the money. And actually,
absolutely.
I think I first emailed and emailed back and forth with, I think it was a
Danielle.
member of your team, yeah, and was told, yeah, no, this program is probably not for you then. And then I got another email from you that said, schedule a time, which I did. And I thought, well, that's weird because I thought we just decided this wasn't for me. And that's when I talked with you. I think we had that half hour to talk. And, I was talking about I need to get my son braces and I need to do this. And it was during that talk when, you said to me, and I don't think anybody has ever said this to me before, you're allowed to spend money on yourself, right? And that's something that I think that as women, we put ourselves behind a lot because everybody has to have everything first and whatever's left over we get,
Yeah.
whether it's time, whether it's money. So that was my biggest, I think, hesitation because I've never really spent a lot of money on myself. And so when I looked at that, I had a little sticker shock. But I can tell you now that I have spent the money and gone through the program that it was the best money I've ever spent. And I remember talking to a friend of mine recently, and she said, wow, I've really noticed a lot of differences in you and your outlook and the things that you talk about and how you talk about them. And what have you been doing? And I mentioned this program, and she said, wow, how much was that? And I told her, and she looked at me and she said, you know what? It was worth every penny. She said, you've come such a long way. And so I really appreciate that she said that to me because it's validation. I know that it's good, but it's good also to hear that from other people.
Yeah, it is. And I think it is hard to because it's like all that money at one time is a big investment, but
Mhm.
I always back it out. I always tell people I have a really expensive brain. I do. I mean, if I were to put together, you do too, Stacy, right? Like
Right.
we put the degrees and the books that we've read and the coaching programs I've gone through. I'm like, my brain is super expensive and I have had to dole out a lot of money. But it has contributed to this woman that you see sitting before you. It doesn't happen without some type of investment, time, talent, treasure. It does require an investment. It does require work. And that's where you showed up in a really big way to do the work. I'm just honored for you to hear you say that. It makes me feel good. Oh my goodness, I'm looking at deer out here. There's some deer across the road. I'm having a squirrel thought. Okay, Meg's going to be like, shit, Kim, I have to cut that out now. Okay, so here's what I want you to answer. My favorite part of working with you or your program is?
Oh, let me think about that for a minute. Let's see. So I'd say my favorite part about working with you, Kim, is your realistic attitude. You are so fabulous that you can listen to anybody's story no matter what it is. It could be a story of depression. It could be a story about loneliness. It could be a story about, I don't know where I belong in this world. And you can really talk to that person from the heart, and you can tell them based on the work that you've done, the books that you've read, the conferences you've been to, the coaching you've had, where you feel they need to start working on themselves to really be able to pull together a plan to pull them out of whatever situation that they're in. And you're always there with a supportive word. On the calls, you're always very supportive and caring. But yet at the same time, you hold us accountable, which is really important, because if I knew that I could get on a call with you and just say, oh, I had a really tough day and I didn't get to this or didn't get to that, and you would say to me, oh, that's okay, we'll get to it next week, then it just wouldn't work. But you hold us accountable to the point where, there was a time when one of my cohorts and I, before your call, we were messaging each other going, I'm still cramming for today, are you done yet? And she'd say, I'm almost done, how much more do you have to do, what do you think about this? So to the point where, it does feel like you're back in college and you have to get there to perform on that exam or that test, and it holds you accountable. And the reason that that's really good is it really gets the most out of the program and helps you to really develop your best self and to solve whatever issue it is that you've come here to solve.
Yeah, yeah. I always tell people I'm never going to be your cheerleader. I'm a coach at the heart of it all. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's nice to hear. Okay. Well, who would you recommend this type of program to and why?
So I would recommend this program to any woman, even 18-year-old women. I mean, I see them in at the university all the time where they come in and I don't know, it seems like this generation is just depressed and they have so many things going on. A lot of them are taking care of parents or siblings. And then to think about taking care of themselves while they're going to college, friends who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who may be suffering from depression or even just on that wheel that feels like they're overwhelmed and they just can't get off. And so any woman who's going through anything, whether it's, like I said, depression or life issues or love issues or kid issues or whatever it might be, can come into this program and really work on themselves in sort of like figuring out what it is about why I'm thinking this way and why I'm behaving this way, why I'm feeling this way, and how to turn that around quickly.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you, Stacy, because you really did do I mean, I found out that I have to coach each woman differently. Like the way that what you needed from me was different than what Angie needed from me, which is different than what Kelly needed from me. But I know that the person who gets the most out of this is the person who takes responsibility for doing their internal work, which means following the video lessons, doing the workbooks, having the crying meltdowns. All of that is such a part of like rebirthing you in your truest sense to who you are as a human being and what your gifts and contribution and impact to everyone around you, from your children to your spouse to the people that you work with and who you want to serve in your business. It all starts with, who am I behind all of this, and how do I really want to show up in the world? And I just think that you've done the work, and I think it is the tip of the iceberg. I mean, you're so talented and smart and a go-getter, and now you combine that with this level of value and self-confidence. I really just can't wait to see what happens for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kim.